So joining us now for updates on the Trump campaign's fight to remain in power is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. Liz, we know that there's a lot of moving parts this week in court. Today, the Trump campaign really taking their fight to the state of Pennsylvania. That's where a lot of the focuses are on as of today. So I want to ask you, what is the RNC doing right now in regard to the presidential election?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of moving parts, as you said. Pennsylvania is certainly a big part of that. And so the Trump campaign is leading that charge to get a fair hearing on these 682,000 ballots that were counted illegally in secret in Allegheny and Philadelphia counties. So those arguments occurred today. We're also pursuing the unconstitutionality of even counting those ballots that came in after Election Day in the first place, because, as you know, as we've discussed, the Pennsylvania state legislature did not change the law. They went outside the Constitution and went outside the rule of law and decided to count ballots illegally. So that's the main fight in Pennsylvania. But there's also really big developments in Georgia today. Yet another 2,700 ballots, missing votes that were found because of a software issue in another county. That's after yesterday. Floyd County in Georgia had over 1,000 votes. These were votes that majority of which went to President Trump. This is a state that the margin is only less than 12 to 14,000 votes. And they're finding multiple counties, finding thousands of ballots. Very obvious that they only ever go one way here. And these are votes for President Trump, and majority of them going to President Trump. So we need to audit all these counties and to see the software that was used, because it's looking more and more like this was the feature, not a bug.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it seems like all of these new findings, if you will, always do seem to be going one way. And I'm not saying that there's anything against the poll workers or anything like that, but at the very least, it does raise some questions, acknowledging that that is a state, as you just pointed out, is the difference of a couple thousand votes. So if we're seeing that type of shift in just one county in Georgia, or then that one county in Michigan, for example, I think it does raise a lot of questions as well. So do you think that Republicans, assuming that they do hold control of the Senate, I know that comes down to the Georgia Senate runoff races, but do you think Republicans need to make this a bigger issue moving forward and making sure that our elections are secure and fair?
Absolutely. Without free and fair elections, we have nothing in this country. And don't think that they'll ever allow us to have a free and fair election again if they're able to steal this in broad daylight. And there's another lawsuit that the RNC is not involved in, but other Republican allies are, in pursuing changes to this hand recount. And there are whistleblowers coming forward in Georgia that say they showed up legally to be a monitor in this hand recount. They showed up at 8, and then an hour later they said, oh, we're all done. We don't need you here. We counted the ballots, recounted them overnight. This is absolutely astounding. We need a fair hearing. We need a fair audit, because there's lots of discrepancies, finding ballots, thousands of ballots that were never uploaded to the system. There's a lot of problems here, and that's why we're seeing a lot of very smart legal minds pursuing this, because we have to have the truth win here. Otherwise, we won't have any free and fair elections in this country again, and we would have woken up on November 4th in Venezuela and not in the United States of America.
And, you know, when we list these different examples of voter fraud, because there are a lot of them, a lot of people in the media will say, like, well, these are anecdotal. These don't amount to widespread corruption or anything like that. But I actually think there's another way to look at this as well, is when you look down the ballot. There's, for example, Republicans, when it came to toss-up House races, they won 23 of the 27 toss-up races, and the remaining 4 are yet to be called. There's a chance that they sweep every single toss-up House race down the ballot. Does that say something to you, or is that just a statistical improbability?
It is totally improbable, and that's why it's on its face. People know something's not right here. We've already flipped 12 seats. As you mentioned, all of those toss-ups went one way. And that's why we need to really audit this software that was used in so many different swing states, but many states throughout the country. Because, again, we have to uncover what's going on here. It makes no logical sense that the only person to not benefit from the red wave would be the person who made it possible, which is President Trump. He's the one that brought the Big Tent in. He's the one who brought record numbers of Hispanic and African American and Asian voters into the Republican Party. And we see the results down ballot. Curiously, we don't see those results with the Biden-only ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, and Wayne County, Michigan, and Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. There's so many irregularities here that it just doesn't make sense. And again, why don't the Democrats want sunlight on this? Why did they block out poll watchers? Why do they not want to audit somewhere where we already have case after case of votes being switched to the benefit of Joe Biden and taken away from President Trump? We cannot let this stand, and we have to get the truth and shine the sunlight on it.
Yeah, I understand the argument because it seems very unlikely to me that a man that has a roughly 90% approval rating in the Republican Party is not getting the same votes as someone who decides to come out for their local congressman and says, you know what, maybe not President Trump this time around. I just don't see that happening. I don't think that anything that we've seen up to this point really solidifies any idea that people aren't coming out in support for President Trump, acknowledging the fact that there was all-time turnout as well this time. So I know there's a lot of moving parts. Liz Harrington, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, helping us to make some sense of what's going on right now. Thank you.